taxes with Rita, you have to calculate that 83 1/3% tax credit. You do too, but the numbers are a little different. For those in Columbus, you are paying 2.75 effectively because you're paying the 2.5 to Columbus,
and then
you're paying the 1/4% that comes to Gahanna. You're paying 2% to Dublin, and you're paying 1/4% to Gahanna. So yours is going to go up 1/4%. Yours is actually going to go down 1/4%. And again, the reason for that is that 1/4% from the tax credit, the way it's applied, and the fact that the city that you live in, whatever their effect or whatever their rate is, then you get currently that 83 1/3 is a credit for up to 1.5% that Gahanna charges, and that's why it ends up being 1/4.
Is that how the current tax structure of Ohio is set up? Is that if you work in a different city that you live in, that city that you live in has to give them a tax credit?
No. So, by the law is written by the community that you live in. That's who passes laws. So, Gahanna or Columbus or any other municipality has legislation on their books to establish their tax rate. The voters are the ones who determine what that rate is in every municipality. The credit is then a legislative adjustment that is able to be passed by the legislators or the council representatives of the community. So many communities, and every community is potentially different, although there are some commonalities is what we've seen in Central Ohio. But you go to a different region of the state, the structure is different. Okay. Because of history and just tradition or however it gets there. Most states and most of the community, basically every community in Central Ohio has some version of a tax rate and a tax credit. The tax credit ranges from, I believe the low is Bexley, or is it Pataskala at 0?
No, they've got something, but Pataskala is a different county too. But Bexley is at 2.5, and actually
for the sake of simplicity, we'll use Bexley because that's the one I can think of off the top of my head. Bexley's credit is 65%. Right. Our credit is 83 1/3%. There's a history of why it's an odd number, but essentially it's so the math works out to be that 1/4% instead of some other number.
Right.
So the electorate in each of the municipalities makes the tax rate. So electorate in Gahanna 40 some years ago made it 1.5%. City of Columbus made it 2 at one point, 2.5 about what 8, 9 years ago, something like that.
There's a chart in here that actually
that's the tax rate
still in here.
And then the community, or then the legislative bodies in each of the communities have provided the credit so that, before I get to the so that, once that is established, it is for everyone. And by state law, everyone includes workers. Okay. So that's the baseline. The baseline is there's a tax rate. Where you work, you owe that tax. Where you live, you owe that tax. That's the rule. Separate is the legislative adjustment. The credit can be made for residents or any other structure. That's where it can get even more complex. But what typically has been done, and what has been done in Central Ohio, is the credit has been established for residents so that they're not paying a tax where they work or paying a lesser tax at the same time.
So it's an easement for the people. It's an easement for
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.